Darby Allin returns for blood. Darby Allin was strapped to a stretcher, beaten, defeated, his hair shaved off in front of the entire wrestling world after losing the AEW World Championship in the most personal, most humiliating stipulation imaginable. And while he lay there vulnerable, broken, unable to defend himself, Kevin Knight climbed to the top rope, looked down at a man who could not move, and hit him with a UFO splash anyway, then tipped the stretcher over. On pay-per-view, in front of his family, in front of the world. And for weeks Darby Allin disappeared. No statements, no social media, no appearances. The wrestling world wondered if that moment had broken something in him that could not be fixed. And then on June 10th, in Cincinnati, during AEW Dynamite Summer Blockbuster, Kevin Knight's music had not even finished playing before Darby Allin's hit the air. And what happened in the next 30 seconds was one of the most viscerally satisfying, most perfectly executed return moments AEW has produced all year. Darby Allin is back. He is bleeding for revenge. And Kevin Knight just learned that some debts get collected whether you are ready for them or not. Let us go back to where this entire story turned genuinely ugly. Because before Double or Nothing, Darby Allin and Kevin Knight had a rivalry built on mutual respect, two of the hungriest, most fearless competitors in AEW going to war over the AEW World Championship in matches that showcased everything great about both men. Despite a spirited effort from the red-hot TNT champion the Jet Kevin Knight, AEW World Champion Darby Allin was able to turn Knight away to retain his world title. Last word on pro wrestling, https://lastwordonsports.com/pro wrestling/2026/04/01/ the-Gunther-Seth-Rollins-on-WWE-Raw, a spirited effort, a genuine challenge. Kevin Knight earned that respect through performance, through fighting the champion to the brink and falling just short. That is the foundation this rivalry was built on. Competition. Two men pushing each other to be better. And then Double or Nothing happened, and MJF defeated Darby Allin for the AEW World Championship in a hair versus title match, and Darby lost his hair in the process. Already one of the most personally devastating stipulations in professional wrestling, and that should have been the end of it. MJF won. The story moved forward. Darby Allin, broken and shaved and lying on a stretcher, deserved at minimum the basic dignity of being allowed to leave that ring on his own terms. Kevin Knight did the unthinkable on Sunday at Double or Nothing when he added insult to injury following Darby Allin's world title loss. Knight came out of the back and rushed to the ring as MJF was celebrating his win over Allin. Knight went to the top rope and hit a UFO splash on Allin as he was tied down on a stretcher. He then tipped the stretcher over. It was one of the more shocking things to happen during the show. Call now, https://KLNow.com/www/WWE-Raw-Live-March-30-202603, tied down, on a stretcher, defenseless. And Kevin Knight, a man who had spent months earning genuine respect through hard-fought competition, chose that exact moment, the lowest possible moment, to deliver a UFO splash to a man who could not move and then tip him onto the floor. There is no version of competitive wrestling logic that justifies that action. That was not a competitor seizing an opportunity. That was cruelty. Pure, deliberate, gratuitous cruelty aimed at a man who had already lost everything that night. And the reason behind it made it so much worse. AEW promised us that new Don Callis family member Kevin Knight would have words for us on the special summer blockbuster edition of Dynamite. The TNT champion took the microphone and talked about the decision to join Callis family, his big reason being the AEW world title shot Don promised him. For 11 Mania, https://411mania.com/wrestling/backstage-update-breakers-medical-status-y-wrestling-VS-booked-set-Raw-LN-VS-4-2, a title shot. That is what Darby Allin's humiliation was worth. Kevin Knight attacked a defenseless man on a stretcher not out of personal vendetta, not out of years of accumulated resentment, but as an audition, a way to prove his ruthlessness to Don Callis. A way to earn a spot in the Don Callis family by demonstrating he was willing to do something no decent competitor would ever do. He sold his integrity, sold the respect he had earned through months of hard-fought matches against Darby Allin, for a promised opportunity at MJF's championship. Knight addressed his actions during Wednesday's show. The fallout from Double or Nothing was on full display during a double episode of Dynamite and Collision. Call now, https://KLNow.com/www-WWE-Raw-Live-March-30-202603, and there was fallout beyond just Darby Allin's absence. Bayley said Knight made a mistake with his assault on Allin. He said it can be fixed if Knight apologized. He put his hand out to embrace Knight. Instead, Knight gave him a shoulder bump and hit Bayley with a clothesline. It appeared the tag team duo of Jet Speed was no more, too. Call now, https://kielnow.com/wwe-live-results-march-30-202603. Kevin Knight's own tag team partner, a man who tried to extend grace, tried to give Knight a path back from what he had done, was clothesline for his trouble. Jet Speed, the team Knight had built his AEW career around, was over. Because Kevin Knight had fully committed. He had burned the bridge to his old life, his old partner, his old reputation, all in service of the Don Callis family and the promise of gold. And then June 10, Cincinnati. AEW Dynamite Summer Blockbuster. With that in mind, Jet called out the champ, Maxwell Jacob Friedman. He didn't get MJF though. For 11 Mania, https://411mania.com/wrestling/backstage-update-breakers-medical-status-y-wwe-booked-Seth-Rollins-vs. 42. This week's episode of AEW Dynamite featured a braggadocios promo from Kevin Knight and his new leader, Don Callis. After bringing up his desire to challenge for the AEW World Championship again, Knight called out MJF. No DQ, https://nodq.com/opinion/nodq-381-Seth-Rollins-vs.John-Cena-hosting-VS-Gunther-Final. He stood in that ring with the confidence of a man who believed his actions at Double or Nothing had purchased him a fast track to championship gold. He called out MJF, the world champion, the man whose celebration he had ruined Darby Allin's body to be a part of. And instead of MJF's music, instead of the response Knight was demanding, something else happened. Allin showed up on tonight's show for the first time since AEW Double or Nothing, surprising the TNT champion and newest member of the Don Callis family after Knight cut an in-ring promo. Allin snuck into the ring behind Knight. Allin nailed Knight with a skateboard, then said that he hoped New York was worth it for Knight. Yahoo Sports, https://sports.yahoo.com/wrestling/breaking-news/live/wwe-wrestling-grades-march-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling-wrestling- AEW, the symbol of the punk rock, do-it-yourself spirit that has defined his entire career, connected with the back of Kevin Knight's skull with brutal force. And the words that came with it cut even deeper than the impact itself. Allin tells Knight, "I hope New York was worth it," by *ch, before going for a coffin drop. Call now, https://wwe/wwe-raw-results-winners-march-30-202603. I hope New York was worth it. Because that is exactly what this entire situation comes down to. Kevin Knight traded his integrity, his tag team partnership, his reputation as a competitor who earns respect through hard work for one moment in New York. One UFO splash on a defenseless man. One tipped stretcher. One audition for Don Callis that he believed would fast-track him to championship gold. And Darby Allin, who disappeared for weeks, who let the wrestling world wonder if he was even coming back, returned with one single, devastatingly simple question: was it worth it? Allin slid in, attacked Knight from behind, and hit a coffin drop before quickly escaping through the crowd. WWE, https://www.WWE.com/video/Gunther-attacks-Raw-highlights-March-30-2026. The coffin drop. Allin's finishing move delivered not as the conclusion of a competitive match, but as a statement. A receipt. The exact same energy Kevin Knight brought to that stretcher at Double or Nothing, returned in kind, on Knight's own terms, in the middle of his own celebratory promo, in front of the entire Don Callis family, who had not even arrived at ringside yet to protect their newest member. However, the rest of the Don Callis family appear, forcing Darby to retreat from the ring. Call now, https://wwe/wwe-results-winners-march-30-202603, and Darby Allin disappeared into the crowd. The same way he came. No extended confrontation. No drawn-out promo explaining his motivations, because his motivations needed no explanation. Everyone in that arena, everyone watching at home, understood exactly what they had just witnessed and exactly why it happened. This was not the start of a new rivalry. This was the continuation of a debt that has been sitting unpaid since Double or Nothing, a debt that Darby Allin spent weeks recovering from, weeks planning, and delivered in under 30 seconds with a skateboard and a coffin drop. The Don Callis family just learned that bringing Kevin Knight into their fold came with a cost they did not anticipate: a former world champion with nothing left to lose and a very specific, very personal grievance against their newest member. And Kevin Knight, who thought a UFO splash on a stretcher was the price of admission to championship contention, just discovered that some prices come with interest. Drop a comment right now. Was Darby Allin's return the most satisfying moment of the summer so far? And do you think this leads to a rematch between these two before Forbidden Door? Share this video because Darby Allin is back and the Don Callis family should be terrified. I'm Wrestling News CC. Darby Allin is hunting, Kevin Knight is marked, and New York is about to cost him